Hello, my name is Wendy Thomas, and I want to welcome you to this webinar on the 2020 postal rate changes. This webinar is one in a series of webinars presented in conjunction with the National Postal Forum. The next National Postal Forum is scheduled for April 26th to 29th, 2020 at the beautiful Orlando World Center Marriott in Orlando, Florida. To receive an extra 10% off of your 2020 NPF registration, be sure to check the box labeled "I have a different discount code" and enter the code MARK 2020 into the discount code box and then click Apply. For the vendors on the call, don't miss out on this premier marketing event for mailing professionals and USPS business customers. Exhibit where you can reach your target customers more effectively and efficiently. Booth spaces are assigned on a first-come, first-served basis, so act quickly. Go to the NPF website for the latest information, www.npf.org. If you have any questions during this webinar, please use the dialog box that appears on the GoToWebinar controls. In addition to covering the prepared remarks, we'll answer as many of those questions as time allows. So let's get started. Mark, what will we cover in today's webinar?
Wendy, thank you very much, and thanks to everyone who's joined us today. I want to let you know that the PowerPoint and the recording of this presentation will be available online shortly after the webinar this afternoon. This rate case was announced on October 9th, 2019, and is set to go into effect on January 26, 2020. The new rates represent about a 1.9% increase over the current prices for mailing or market-dominant products, and about a 4% increase for shipping or competitive products. We'll cover those categories in further detail in just a bit. This price increase is the first increase approved by a Board of Governors with a full quorum in a decade. It also comes in the shadow of the pending rate-making changes proposed by the Postal Regulatory Commission, or PRC. This rate case includes some increases and, believe it or not, some prices that won't change depending upon class and level of sortation. After we cover those, we'll walk through an implementation checklist for actions managers should take both before and after the implementation date of January 26th, 2020.
January 26th? That's a Sunday, isn't it?
That's right, Wendy. For almost a decade, the Postal Service has implemented the rate changes on Sundays. And this is a good move for mailers and the Postal Service. While mail may only be delivered 6 days a week, many operations in the print and mail industry operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Even shops that only deposit mail Monday through Friday often begin work in processing that work on Sunday afternoon or evening. When you and I began in the industry decades ago, rate changes meant changing the charts on fan scales, and maybe some of our listeners know what a fan scale is, setting the defaults on meters, or installing new chips. Today, software drives our mailing, from creating mailing statements, mail.dot files, and eDocs, to running the machines that produce and meter the mail. Most of the software updates will automatically take place on Sunday the 26th. That means managers can take advantage of this extra day to run additional tests on their equipment and on the production software.
The rates for shipping services and other competitive products are calculated separately from the market-dominant prices and even require a separate filing. However, the changes will also go into effect on January 26th. Mark, could you walk us through what are those changes?
Certainly, Wendy. Let's start with Priority Mail Express. All Priority Mail products are zone-based, so the dollar amounts you see here are with Zone 1. You need to know your mail and know where you're shipping for your exact costs. The increase is slight on the retail side, ranging from 2.9% to 3.3%, with increases ranging from 75 to 85 cents. The additional fees are staying the same as they have been since 2017, with $12.50 for Sunday delivery and $5 for delivery before 10:30 a.m. on a weekday. It's important to note that the Postal Service remains the only major carrier that delivers on Saturday at no extra cost. However, the largest competitors are now offering 7-day-a-week delivery. The Postal Service was there first, but will have to fight to maintain their share of Sunday deliveries. There were lower increases, less than 1% for commercial rates. The same extra fees applies with an additional 20 cents if the packages are non-IMPB compliant.
With Priority Mail, you have 3 slots: commercial, commercial base, and commercial plus. Can you explain the difference?
Absolutely. The commercial base prices are for click and ship customers mailing regional rate boxes, registered end users of Postal Service approved PC products or PC postage products when using a qualifying shipping label, the customers using permit imprint, Priority Mail open and distribute customers using permit imprint with a qualifying address label, permit holders using merchandise return service for mail pieces returned at Priority Mail prices, and then customers using USPS approved information-based indicia, IBI postage meters that print the IBI with the appropriate price marking and electronically transmit the transactional data to the USPS. Commercial Plus prices are available to Priority Mail customers who qualify for commercial base and whose cumulative account volume exceeds a combined total of 5,000 letter size and flat size prices or 50,000 pieces in the previous calendar year and have a customer commitment agreement with the Postal Service. The postage savings in these categories are significant, and business users of any of the Priority Mail products should be moving in this direction.
And we really notice that when compared to the standard Priority Mail category.
That's right, Wendy. As you can see, there's a greater than 5% increase for most categories of retail Priority Mail. I want to point out that the APO, FPO, and DPA flat rate box rates. APO stands for Army Post Office, FPO is the Federal Fleet Post Office, and DPO is the Diplomatic Post Office. These are the addresses used if you're shipping to a service member or someone in the State Department who's either on board a ship or is out of the port or is in the Air Force, Army, or Marines and is stationed overseas. Based on the real requirements and the requests from families and friends to help support our service members overseas, the Postal Service provides this service at $1.50 less expensive than the standard flat rates. The commercial base pricing has significantly lower increases, an average of only 2.8%. However, there is a sticker shock for commercial mailers who use Priority Mail for large flat rate boxes with an increase of 4%. I do want to point out some of the Postal Service competitors increased their rates by 5%, so still a good deal. However, despite these increases, the discount from retail rates is substantial, ranging from 60 cents for a flat rate envelope up to $2.80 for those large flat rate boxes. As I said earlier, businesses who use Priority Mail need to move commercial base, or as we'll see, commercial plus. The per piece increase is similar to commercial base, however, the savings are even deeper. It's pretty easy to see the strategy here is to help more mailers and more shippers move their business to the Postal Service.
So the remainder of this webinar will focus on the market dominant rate changes. Any comments before we get started?
Well, as most of our attendees know, the market dominant rates are limited to a price cap set by the Consumer Price Index for urban customers. It's called the CPIU. And for this period, CPIU was only 1.9%. And for the most part, increases are at or near the CPI.
How did these rates break out for first-class mail?
So first-class mail is also like shipping services we talked about earlier and is divided into two categories, retail and commercial. Retail is single-piece rates, and commercial is when you're using meters, permits, or have volume and sorting discounts. For first-class mail retail, there's actually no increase in most categories, and this really isn't a surprise. Last year, the price of a single forever stamp was raised to 55 cents, a 10% increase. It's important to note that that increase faced and lost a court challenge. In September, a three-judge panel of the D.C. District Court of Appeals ruled for the plaintiff in Carlson versus the Postal Regulatory Commission. The court decided that the PRC didn't follow proper procedures nor fully considered all 14 statutory factors when approving that price increase. So therefore, the PRC decision approving the 55-cent stamp was declared invalid. What was very interesting is the Postal Service and the PRC have taken different approaches to this ruling. The Postal Service has appealed to the full court, while the PRC simply issued a new order, taking into account the 14 factors and still approving the rates. So I would say that chapter isn't completely closed yet. For the commercial mailers, and that's for most of the people in this call, your first-class letter pre-sorts have gone up by different amounts depending upon how fine your sort is. Single-piece metered mail is staying the same, and that's because it's tied to the price of a first-class stamp. The mixed AADC rate is increasing by 1.1 cents, while the AADC and five-digit sort categories are both increasing by less than a cent. Still important note, even though the first-class rates haven't changed single piece, the new rates are still 6.1 cents, 8.1 cents, and 11.1 cents lower than a metered single piece. That's a substantial savings when you start multiplying by hundreds, by thousands, and by millions of pieces.
So what's going on with the Postal Service marketing mail?
The rate structure for marketing mail, well, it's not quite as straightforward as first-class mail, as the mail entry point has a significant impact. We're going to have to stay at a fairly high level during this review. As I've said before, and I'll say repeatedly during this webinar, mailers need to take the time to know their mail. They need to know how it's shaped, where you're entering it, and how you're sorting it to make sure you understand the full impact of this rate increase. For example, for letters, our chart shows the difference between mixed origin submission, destination network distribution center, or DNDC, and destination sectional center facility, DSCF facility. The closer to the carrier, the letter carrier, that the mail enters the Postal Service, the lower the prices. For the listeners who use a vendor to create and enter their marketing mail, set up some time with them and have them explain how they plan on achieving the lowest possible rate for your mail. Listeners will notice that the rates for flats have a higher percentage increase. Those increases are designed to more accurately reflect the true cost avoidance the Postal Service gains. The Postal Service has, in some ways, over-rewarding the savings in these categories, and this increase helps close the gap.
I've noticed that for periodicals, you've only included bullet points, but not charts. Why is that?
Well, because periodicals are based on a large number of variables. For example, rates are based on content. How much is advertising versus editorial? Is it outside county, inside county? Are they machinable flats, non-machinable flats? What type of containers, pallets, and bundles are you using? And believe it or not, even a few more characteristics than that. People who mail in this category need to be experts or need to hire experts to select the best possible way to prepare and present their periodicals to the Postal Service. Comparing content preparation costs, and postage is the best way to find the best solution for your organization. You really need to know your mail, especially in this rate class. While the overall increases for periodicals are at or lower than the CPI, 1.924%, for outside county, it's 1.924% for outside county and 1.46% for inside county. Again, the distribution of those increases is dependent on size. Reading through the increases, smaller, low volume, lightweight publications may see a larger increase, while larger, high volume periodicals, their increases will range anywhere from 1% to 4%.
Finally, there are the changes within the extra services and the fees. It's impossible for us to get through all of these changes. What are the most common extra services and fees that impact mailers, and what are those changes, Mark?
Well, as you said, there's a lot of options with the special services. What services is your company using? Are you using post office boxes? And what size post office boxes are you using? Do you use certified mail? Do you use certificates of mailing? You really need to look at what you're using and the volumes in which you're using. On average, post office boxes are increasing about 2.3%. Certified mail is increasing by 1.43%, but look at return receipt. That's an increase of 3.04%. So you need to know what services you're using, but now ask yourself another question. Why is the mail being sent a certain way? I want to put in a brief story here. Back when I ran a mail operation, we were sending out letters as certified mail and found that we could send them out as certificate of mailing. Back then, that was a savings of more than $2 per piece. So look at why you're using a certain class of mail and can it change? Do you need return receipt? Can you use electronic return receipt? Ask yourself all of these questions because here are real opportunities, not just to save pennies, but dollars per mail piece.
So Mark, when and where are these new rates going to be published? Is there still a rate fold available?
A rate fold. Wendy, I guess you and I are showing your age when we talk about a rate fold. For those of you on the webinar who started after the year 2000, the Postal Service used to release the rate increase on a piece of paper that was folded 3 times. It was 11 by 24, so you could basically fold it into thirds, and it became a 6-page because it was duplex. And that was the entire rate increase. Now the Postal Service has a price list. It's no longer a rate fold. This is called Notice 123, and it's available on Postal Explorer, which is pe.usps.com. And then you can view the rates as either an HTML or PDF document. If you download the PDF, you'll see that it's 75 pages long. That's really significant, and I think it demonstrates how much our industry has changed. Until January 26, the new rates are available for download as either an Excel file or a CSV file. The Excel file is really helpful because there's a tab for each rate class complete with zone and weight tables.
Mark, earlier you mentioned the Postal Regulatory Commission's review of the rate-making rules. How does that impact this rate case?
So the PRC's revised rate-making rules were released on December 5th, 2019. So they won't go into effect until at least the next rate case. What happened is back in 2017, the PRC released proposed rulemaking, and the PRC came to a split decision. Some aspects of the 2017 proposed rules are going to be retained in this new proposal, while others were completely rewritten. I highly recommend that mailers download the proposed rules at prc.gov, and you need to read the entire brief. It's long, over 300 pages, and it's not always easy to follow, There's formula in there. There's multiple legal terms that are in there. So be sure you have plenty of strong coffee or whatever your caffeinated beverage of choice is on hand. My copy is full of sticky notes highlighting a lot of different sections. There are different areas covered in the proposed rulemaking, including legal authority, a review of past comments. Of special interest are the potential changes for additional rate authority. That means increases that can be higher than the rate of inflation as determined by the CPI. And the three areas that the PRC is proposing additional increased authority is on non-controllable factors. So that includes measuring the density of mail and also taking effect any additional charges for the retirement fund that the federal government determines the Postal Service is required to add to that fund. They're also going to look at allowing additional authority for controllable factors. Those will be based on how well the Postal Service is performing, but also what type of service standards the Postal Service sets for themselves. Both will come into effect. They're also going to look at increases for non-compensatory products and classes. If you remember when we were talking about USPS marketing mail flats, the class today currently doesn't fully fund their costs. It's also true for periodicals. So the PRC is recommending a way to change those prices, but at the same time not completely make them unaffordable. Individuals, businesses, and associations can file public comments at prc.gov up until February 3rd, 2020. We at the Berkshire Company are still working on our comments and will release those later this month.
Mark, can you provide our listeners with some tips on what they should be doing during the actual implementation of the new rates? What do you recommend?
Well, Wendy, we're going to do more than just provide tips. We're going to provide a checklist of what our listeners should be doing, and we've provided it and divided it down into three areas. One is what you should be doing right now, what you'll do directly before the increase takes effect, and then what you should be doing on January 24th and 25th. So first up, these are things, if you haven't already done, you need to do them as soon as possible. Send an announcement to your customers, and this includes your internal customers if you're a corporate mail center. If you're a service provider, send it to your external customers. Let them know the changes are taking effect. Look at how it will affect their bills and how you charge them. This is a great opportunity for you to show to your customers that you're adding value to the process. You're showing that you're the expert in why they should use you. And just because you're an internal mail center doesn't mean you shouldn't be selling yourself to your internal customers. You should also meet with your local postal representatives. As we talked, there are going to be preparation changes in some places. Meet with your local postal service representative and go over how those changes may impact your mail. Go over how any changes to the postage statements you're filling out today will look tomorrow. Or if you're changing your sort levels, how that will impact you. It's really important you spend time with your local U.S. Postal Service representatives. You may also want to consider going and meeting with the business mail entry manager or her representative. You should meet with your meter and software representatives. These meetings can take place over the phone just to talk about when you'll receive your updates. If you use a digital postage meters, how do you download the update for your meter? When is that going to take place? And how is that going to take place? Do you do the installation? Does a service tech do it? Again, these are questions you need to make sure you ask your vendors. With your software vendors, meet with them to talk about when you're going to receive updates, how you install it, and how do you make sure the update was properly received and installed. Meet with your mail center employees. Go over this presentation with them. or at least the parts that impact your categories of mail. This webinar is being recorded, and the PDF will be available for download. You could do a lunch and learn with your employees, have them listen to this, and then you can stop it as you need to and answer questions. The next phase is for you is either the end of the day on either January 24th or 25th. Why 2 different days? Well, if you're a 5-day-a-week shop, in other words, you process mail Monday through Friday, January 24th is that Friday. If you also enter mail on Saturday, January 25th, there you go. I recommend making these changes at the end of the day after you've closed out for one reason. Mondays can be Mondays. You don't know what's going to hit you on Monday, January 27th when you walk through the door. When you've closed the door on Friday or you've closed out the day on Saturday, there's not an immediate rush to get things done and get problems resolved. Take this time to take the extra steps to make your Monday go a lot easier. Upload any software for your meters or your forms. Post reminders around your mail center on the new rates on the increases that are taking effect. Post a reminder at the meters. Post a reminder at the inserters. Post a reminder if you have a customer service window. Put it right on the window to remind customers and service clerks about the changes. And go around and collect every single printed form, recycle them, and put out any new forms downloaded from the Postal Service. Do that at the end of the day. Now, when you get to Monday, January 27th, the first thing you want to do is send out another announcement to your customers reminding them today's the day the changes take place. This may be an email that you've already prepared, or maybe something you've put into the interoffice mail on Friday. But be sure to send an announcement to all your customers, internal and external. Start the day to brief all your mail center employees. This may be part of your daily 5-minute huddle with all employees, reminding them that the new rates have gone into effect, any new preparation standards have gone into effect, and any new forms that have gone into effect. Remind them and then answer any questions they might have. Go around and test every meter in every online form. Because the software is being digital, the software may not actually work until January 26th. So again, test it first thing in the morning, or if you can go in on Sunday, test it on Sunday. Make sure the meters are putting the right amount of mail on the postage for your 1 ounce and free sorted mail, etc. And make sure the online forms have the new rates loaded in them. You're going to want to implement additional quality control checks throughout the day. And I'm sure all of our listeners have good quality control checks in place for their mail. On a day the rates change, you want to have the new additional quality control checks just to make sure nothing gets mixed up. The last thing is I recommend having a manager or supervisor accompany your mail to the Postal Service. The first time you enter mail after a rate change, you want to make sure you have someone ride along. There might be questions. This is a change for the Postal Service too, and you want to make sure you have somebody there that can work to resolve any issues that might arise. Ask the right questions and provide the right answers. Don't just throw this on your clerks and drivers. This is a great opportunity to step up and show that additional support.
Mark, you've covered a lot of information with us today, and I want to thank you for taking the time to walk us through the USPS rate increase. Do you have any closing comments?
So first, I'd like to just mention this slide here on resources. The Postal Service website, USPS.com, and the sub parts of that have received numerous awards for its ease of use. And I'll agree, I use it almost every day. As we mentioned, they have a price list that's easily available, and they have links to the Federal Registry notices. There are a couple of areas deeper within the USPS website that you should be spending time on. The first is Postal Explorer, which is pe.usps.com. There's no www in front of it. This is where you can easily access the DMM, quick service guides, and other publications to allow you to get information about how to prepare your mail. The DMM advisory is one of the most important services the Postal Service announced. This allows you to receive updates via email from the Postal Service on prices changes, regulatory changes, or potential notices going into the Federal Register. It's very simple to get on that list. You just send an email to dmmadvisory@usps.com, include your name and email address in the body, and put subscribe in the subject line. It's one of the most important tools that we use as consultants, and we make sure all of our customers use it as well. There's no way I could have kept up with this rate increase if I didn't have the DMM advisory notices coming to your mailbox. I also recommend that you sign up for the PCC Insider newsletter. Sometimes this is the same information coming out from the DMM advisory, but it also includes information about online courses that are available, webinars, or courses and information available to PCCs to present their members. And I end this webinar every year by talking about a good friend of mine, Doug Ainsworth, who ran a very successful pre-sort company. And Doug used to tell me, Mark, you need to know your mail. What does that mean? You need to know the content of your mail. What class should you be using? Is it first class mail? Could it qualify as USPS marketing mail? Is it bound printed matter? Is it meteor mail? You need to know the content of your mail to determine the class. You need to know the characteristics of your mail. What's the shape? What's the size? What's the weight? What are the full dimensions of your mail piece? Because that's also going to define what class you'll fall into. How can you change the characteristics of your mail piece to take advantage of the lowest possible rates? And lastly, you need to know your quantities by category. You need to know what volumes you're sending by class of mail, what volumes you're sending by entry point category, and what volumes you're sending by what sort density. You need to look at this continuously. Now, I have on here weekly, monthly, and quarterly reviews. I have to tell you something. The best mailers out there, they review their mail daily. Every day, they're looking at their mail. They're looking about what's different about today's mail. What could they have changed about today's mail? Or could they have delayed today's mail to go out tomorrow and achieve greater sorting discounts? You need to be looking at your mail constantly. This is not necessarily a full-time job, but it's a very important part of your job or somebody in your team who has a keen analytical mind and will report to you. The last part is using the Postal Service. As they like to say, USPS begins with you. The Postal Service has spent a lot of time educating their managers and their business service network representatives on the changes, educating their sales force on what's available for commercial mailers. Take the time to use your local postal resources. Meet with your business mail entry manager. Meet with your account representatives. Meet with your mail piece design analyst if there's still one nearby. What changes can you make to the characteristics, to your content, to your quantities to really maximize the discounts that are available to you? Remember, to be successful, know your mail.
Mark, thank you very much for the information that you shared with us today. I would also like to thank our listeners. If you would like any additional information, please visit our website, www.berkshire-company.com. And we look forward to seeing everyone at the National Postal Forum, April 26th to 29th, 2020, at the beautiful Orlando World Center Marriott in Orlando, Florida. Please remember to receive an extra 10% off your 2020 NPF registration. Be sure to check the box labeled, I have a different discount code, and enter the code MARK 2020 into the discount code box. Then click apply.
So
to learn more about registration,
I just wanted to make sure there were any other questions that people had. We answered the ones that showed up in the chat box, but were there any more before we signed off? Okay, Wendy.
All right, well then, to learn more about registration options and opportunities to save, please visit www.npf.org for all the details. Until then, goodbye. Thank you.